All right, we're live. This week, I'm so very excited to be joined by Dave Burgess. Dave is the New York Times bestselling author of Teach Like a Pirate, co author of P is for Pirate, and the president of Dave Burgess Consulting, Inc. Dave has quickly become an inspirational leader in the educational community by providing powerful and innovative books, keynotes, and professional development. Dave, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my absolute pleasure to be on the show. Thank you for having me.
And Dave, as you know, the show is centered on leadership development. I would love to hear your personal leadership journey and how you went from the classroom to the president of your own publishing and consulting company.
Well, so I think it was dissatisfaction is what got me there. Is that I was traveling around, I was doing the Teach Like a Pirate program, and I didn't have a book, didn't have anything like that, and I was offered a publishing contract, read the publishing contract, went straight up into my hotel room, Googled publishing contracts because I thought she was trying to cheat me. I really thought she was trying to cheat me. And then when I Googled publishing contracts, I came to find out she was not trying to cheat me. That's what they look like. And to me, the only thing missing was a ski mask and a gun. I was like, wait a second now. I'm going to write this book. It's my intellectual property. I'm going to travel around and speak about it. I'm going to build a social media platform. And you make how much money? And I make how much money? It just didn't make any sense to me at all. And they wanted to take creative control of my project. They want to do all these things. So we did a ton of research into the industry, and we decided, hey, the publishing industry is based on an outdated model. And whenever you see something that's based on an outdated model, like a lot of people feel about education right now, it's time for it to be disrupted. And so we formed our own publishing company, and we put out Teach Like a Pirate right from our house, right at the kitchen table off a laptop. And so then this crazy thing happened, Joshua. It exploded. It went wild. You always, when you put a book out, you never know what's going to happen. I certainly didn't know what was going to happen with my book. But I had the good fortune to have it go viral and have it explode. And so other people started to come to us and say, hey, how are you doing this? We don't want to sign those contracts either. Like how are you getting this book in front of so many people? And so we finally decided it's time to just drive some of these big companies crazy. We'll start signing these people that we run across. And so now we publish over 60 different books, and we still run the business. I run it with my wife, Shelly. We run the business right here from our house. So it was a dissatisfaction with what we've seen in the publishing industry and things that we felt were not equitable for authors, and wanting to maintain creative control over the message.
Mm-hmm. And so as your time as a teacher and in the education world, what was one impactful experience you had that enhanced your skills as a leader?
I think one of the key turning points for me was agreeing to do the very first Teach Like a Pirate workshop. And here's how this exactly went down. I met my department chair, who's a friend of mine, for lunch. He came in excited. He said, hey, I just got put on the professional development committee for the district. And I thought to myself, how cool would it be if you put together a workshop based on some of that crazy stuff you do down in your room that nobody understands? But then he paused and he said something that kind of changed my life. He said, I don't think you can. The more I think about it, I think that your success in the classroom is just kind of you. I think it's personality driven. I'm not sure it's something you could teach to other people. Well, I took that as a challenge. And so I signed up to do a full day workshop for the peers in my district. Drove away from that meeting going, oh my God, what have I done? I don't have a workshop. And so I was forced into a position where I was going to be standing for 6 hours in front of my peers, my colleagues, and I better have something to say. Right. And so I think that was an important point for me, because sometimes you have to leap and you have to grasp opportunity before you're ready. If you wait until you feel you're ready to always take that next leap, that next jump, that seize that opportunity, you'll be stagnant. You'll never go for it. You're never going to feel ready. You have to go before you're ready and then get ready. Right. And so I think being willing to take a risk and to take that leap and to say, I'm going to do a workshop before I even had one was a turning point for me.
Mm-hmm. And so, in your experience, what leadership skills were the most difficult to develop?
I think one of the skills that's most difficult to develop is how to bring people along who are maybe resistant to the message, who are maybe, it's not that they're bad people. It's not that they don't care about kids. It's not that they honestly believe that what they're doing is in the best interest of students, and you might have a different standpoint, and how to come to some sort of consensus, how to come to sort of agreement, how to move someone forward from an entrenched stance. I think that's one of the most difficult things that leaders can do, is to build, to take something from a grassroots level and to build momentum around it. And so I think that's one of the key skills that a leader needs.
And you have an incredible pulse on the future of education as you travel around the world. What is the largest barrier to success of our students?
One of the things that I rail about quite often is the overemphasis on standardized test scores and on an emphasis on measuring things, which I don't think are the most important things that happen in schools. And so if the measurement for success is something which is not the most important stuff that's happening in the school, that's where the focus tends to go. And so I think moving towards empowering students and allowing students to have a little more choice, allowing students to explore some of their passions and interests, incorporating some more innovation, teaching entrepreneurship, all these kind of things are important things that schools can do. And if you have an overemphasis on that test score, that number at the end of the year, in my book I wrote about this isn't fantasy football. And so, for example, I can remember my son's friend. He lives down the street, watching the Chargers play and cheering. He's a Charger fan for his life, cheering when Vincent Jackson dropped a pass from Phillip Rivers. I'm like, what are you taught? Why did you just cheer that? He's like, well, my opponent has Vincent Jackson on his fantasy team, and I said, oh, you got to be kidding me. So the stats of the game, you care more about that than seeing your team win, which should be the most important thing, right? Or someone watches a game and they're upset because rather than be the player that scored the touchdown, their player had the key block, which opened up the hole that allowed the team to score the touchdown. Well, that didn't show up on the fantasy football stat sheet, so they don't care about it, and they're upset that they didn't hand the ball off to their player, right? And so that's what I mean, that when you're so focused on those numbers, and the numbers are arbitrary and not necessarily reflective of what the most powerful things that are happening in the game, the same things happening in school. When I'm doing the civil rights unit, for example, what do I care more about? That my students know all the different features of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, or that they're willing, able, and have the courage to fight racism, fight oppression, stand up to injustice, right? Well, it's the latter, right? We want them to be able to do that, but that's not on the test. The features of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 are on the test. And so I'm not saying that you can't do both, but I think that's one of the areas that gets me most upset in education right now.
Mm-hmm. And so as a lead learner, how are they able to instill discovery, growth, and innovation with your staff?
So I think modeling it is one of the most important things. And so I had a confrontational tweet that I sent. I think it's been a couple years ago now, but it was fairly confrontational. Basically, it said, don't talk to me about innovation, creativity, and collaboration if your staff meetings and professional development model none of this. And so I think as leaders, we have to walk the talk. And so if you want, I think that what you provide for teachers should look similar to what you want to see in your classrooms. And so if your staff meeting is reading down bullet points on PowerPoint slides and regurgitating information, which could just as easily be sent in an email, and is boring, lacks engagement, then and then you turn around and say you can't understand why your teachers don't do anything innovative and creative. I think I think that you're part of the problem. And we used to have a way. I have a buddy, his name is John Beret, taught with me at West Hills. And one of the ways that we would talk about judging a staff meeting or professional development held on our campus is when we leave, are we more excited and enthusiastic about going into our classrooms and doing the work, and or more prepared to go into our classrooms to do the work? And if you can't tick either of those boxes, then I don't think that was a very good professional development or staff meeting.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard you use the analogy of a gift shop in referring to education. Will you share your theory on that? And as an administrator, how can we bring that to life?
Yeah, so it has to do with reframing how we look at homework is one of the primary ways I use this. And
Mhm.
so, like when you go to a theme park and you go on like the exciting rides, like the Jurassic Park ride, the Mummy ride, the Excalibur ride, the things like that, right? You go on this wild ride, and then the ride stops. They lift the little belt or bar off of you, right? And then where do they leave you? They empty you in the back of the gift shop. And then with your kid, you have to walk through the entire gift shop, which, by the way, has been themed around that ride that you just went on. Okay, so you get off the Jurassic Park ride, and there's dinosaur sets, and there's books about dinosaurs and DVDs about dinosaurs. You get off the Mummy ride, and there's books about ancient Egypt and the pyramids and mummification, and there's little Egypt things with Egyptian symbols on it, and all that kind of stuff. Excalibur ride. There's swords and shields. When I go to SeaWorld and I go through the shark encounter, I'll get on the little moving sidewalk, and you go through the little glass tunnel. There's sharks swimming over your head. As soon as you get off that escalator or that little moving sidewalk, where are you? You're in the gift shop. Shark tooth necklaces, DVDs about sharks. Now you tell me, when my son gets into that gift shop at that moment, what does he want? He wants all of it. Because he just saw sharks. They were just swimming over top of his head. And he's like, Dad, how many teeth? Look, they have rows of teeth. What happens if they bite you? And he's asking all these questions about sharks. And now he's fascinated by sharks because he just had this powerful experience and he wants to know more. Well, that's how we have to look at school. You have to create a powerful learning experience for students first. And then you empty them into the gift shop of how you can go further. Here's resources. You're interested in this now? Here's some resources for you. Here's a project you can do. Here's a challenge you can take on. Here's a way you can explore more. And so, but it always goes back to that powerful learning experience first. And then when you create that powerful learning experience, you don't then kill it by what you send home, like worksheet packets and stuff like that destroy the love of learning. You take them into the gift shop where they can go and do these wonderful things now that there's self-interest. So I think we need to do a better job of emptying kids into the gift shop.
And so you probably have received criticism about your message. And if so, how did you work through that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've received all kinds of criticism about it, and what I think you have to do. You have to be reflective and say, if they're saying something that's good feedback, or are they just trolling and a hater? and I've had both, right? And so sometimes I'll tell you a piece of feedback, which is this sometimes make me bristle, but there's some truth to it. So maybe someone will say to me, "Hey, you didn't talk about, I noticed that you didn't mention this in your book," and then whatever it'll be, maybe it'll be like ed tech. They'll say, "There's not a lot of ed tech in your book. I noticed that. Not a lot of ed tech integration." And what I'll say to them is this: you know why there's not a lot of ed tech in my book? It's because I wasn't very good at it.
Hmm.
And I wanted to speak only about things that I could authentically talk about. If it's in my book, I did it and was successful with it. If it's not in my book, it's probably not in there because I wasn't good at it. And so that's why it was super important for us to continue the Teach Like a Pirate was not meant to be the encyclopedia of teaching. Teach Like a Pirate was not meant to be the teaching Bible, right? It was my story. It's my manifesto about what I feel about education and how I think we can move things forward. But that's why it was important to start to publish some other people's story too. I feel like people always said, "You're going to write Teach Like a Pirate Part 2. I'm not going to. I told my story, and now I see my role and Shelly's role is finding other people who can complement the message and help them amplify their ability to tell their story and to share their message. And so that's what we're super fired up about now.
And a lot of people consider you a change agent in the industry. What is one area you want to change in education?
So I worked very hard to try to get teachers connected. Even to this day, 2019, when I ask people how many are connected educators, how many are on Twitter, how many are, things like that, it's still actually a very small percentage. And for those of us who are connected or on Twitter, we kind of get this sense that we're all there. Because we're all kind of preaching to the choir to each other about getting connected and all that kind of stuff like that. And then you go do an event and there's 1,000 people there and you're like, oh no, there's like 50 of us on Twitter and 950 of us not. And so that's one of the things I'm trying to get more and more teachers to get connected. Becoming a connected educator changed my life. And I think it's changed a lot, the lives of a lot of educators I know. And so I think we no longer have to be limited by the ideas in our system. We no longer have to be limited by what the professional development is that's provided to us. We can go out and find those things we can collaborate on a global scale and bring ideas back into our system from everywhere. And plus, again, this goes to amplifying your impact. You can take what you're doing, which is powerful, and share it out on a global scale by being connected as well. So that's one of the things I'm fighting for.
And so I know on social media, there's a lot of times where people are surprised that anyone wants to hear their voice. What are some characteristics that you believe every leader should possess?
So I think you have to have courage. And I love what Maya Angelou said about this. And basically she said that courage was the most important of all of the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice the others. And so I think that courage is one of the most powerful things, the ability to connect and to build relationships and rapport with people is another one of the powerful things. And again, that ability to, you can't be a leader if nobody's with you. And so like one of the things that people ask me sometimes is, hey, so I'm at this school, I would like to change the school culture. And I just got here and there's some apathy, there's some negativity, there's some people that are excited, and like I don't know how to pull this all together, right? And so I'll tell them this story. I'll say, hey, listen, if you wanted to build a giant snowball and you went out into the snow, you try to grab it all up in your arms at one time, what would happen? It would crumble away and you'd wind up with nothing. That's not how you build a giant snowball. The only way you can build a giant snowball is you get a little bit in your hands and you shape it and you mold it and you pack it tight. And then when that's shaped and molded, you add a little bit to it and you work with that and you add a little bit more. Eventually it gets big enough where you can put it on the ground and you can roll it. And when you start to roll it, the snow starts to stick. That's the only way you build a giant snowball. That's the only way you change culture at a school too. You can't announce change podium as a leader. You can't just stand up one day and say, this year we're going to be creative and innovative, or pass out eye patches, and this year we're pirates, and expect that there's going to be 100% buy-in, right? You're not going to get everybody all at once. You have to find that group that does want to be a part of something new, does want to be a part of something innovative and creative, and you work with them and you focus your energy on them, and then the enthusiasm and the energy that radiates out from that group starts to attract other people in. But too many leaders allow their energy to be dissipated by trying to get everybody all at once. They get dissipated by working with the people who are apathetic and the people who are negative, rather than taking that energy, which there's a limited amount of, and really focusing it on where it can be the most powerful, those people that do want to move forward with you. If you wait for everyone in your system to be ready to move forward before you move forward, you're never going anywhere. Find the people that want to go with you and start moving.
And so I've had multiple conversations lately in regards to leadership burnout. You've always seemed to have a ton of energy. What's your secret?
So the ability to turn it on and off at the right times, right? And so you can verify this. We were chatting before this podcast started, and I'm a very calm person. And I can have a very calm conversation, and I don't go running around my house ranting and raving and leaping around. But when I step in front of a group of teachers or students, I turn it on. I talk about turning on the propane in the classroom, for example. And so look, it's all about turning on the propane. You have raw steak. You have to, first of all, I don't put my steak down on a cold grill. I preheat it, right? You build up that mystery, curiosity, anticipation, so that when you do drop your content, it sizzles, right? And then plus, when I'm stepping in front of a group of people, I have a simple goal. I'm going to light this place on fire and I'm going to burn it down around them. Okay. And you better wear some fire retardant clothes when I step up, because I'm going to go off. I'm going to douse myself with the gasoline of enthusiasm and spark it with the flames of inspiration. I'm going to light up when I get in front of people. Right. But then I'm going to step off. I'm going to step off the stage and I'm going to be able to talk to you nice and calm like this. And so I also think that you have to be willing to honor your outside interests and passions. Teach like a pirate is a mindset. It's a way of looking around the world and saying, how can I use that? And so the more you're able to honor some of your outside passions and interests and develop new ones, it gives you creative ammunition from areas of life back in your team. So that time that you spend doing your hobby, that's not time wasted. That's time invested, which not only can recharge you, right, but also it's going to give you some ideas and creative ammunition that you're going to eventually be able to bring back into your system. Every hobby or any outside passion I've gotten into has always helped my teaching. It's always brought me ideas.
So what do you wish you had known before going out beyond the classroom, extending your voice, writing a book, and building your own company?
I'm not sure I would change my journey at all. I think it was all important. I think that too many people. So here's what happens to us sometimes at Dave Burgess Consulting Inc. Someone will come to us and say, "Hey, I want to write a book, and then I'm going to go around and I'm going to go speak and I'm going to get on social media and I'm going to get involved and connected and that's the way I'm going to make a lot of money." And that makes me nervous. First of all, if they're getting into it for the money, it makes me nervous. But secondly, don't write a book and go speak. Go speak and then write a book. Because when you go speak, you take your audience message out of an authentic audience and you get to see what resonates. You get to see what people are excited about. You get to see what people want to ask you about and get more information after you're done. You get to look at your social media feed and see which parts of your presentation really hit people. You get to see what slide goes up on the screen that they all take their phones out and want to get a picture of it. And you get a chance to hone and craft your message in front of that authentic audience. And then, only then, do you come back and you write that book. And so I think that people put they do it backwards too often. I love to work with speakers and bloggers, and podcasters, Joshua, because you've already been in front of an authentic audience. You know what's hit, what resonates and what doesn't resonate. And so then when you pull it together, I think it's going to be more powerful.
Mm-hmm. And so for those starting their leadership journey, what advice do you have for them?
I think it goes back to what I said at the beginning, which was sometimes you have to seize opportunities and take that leap before you're ready. And for leaders who would like to see more innovation and creativity and risk-taking in their system, I would offer this piece of advice. It's very cliche right now to be pro-innovation, pro-risk-taking in school systems, right? And people say it all the time. I want teachers who are innovative. I want them to be risk takers and all this. Okay, so here's the reality. We don't really know if you support innovation and risk taking until we see how you react when somebody fails. And so it's very easy to say it, and it's very easy to be pro innovation and risk taking when you're talking about maybe some of the superstars in your system, okay? But what when someone takes that first risk, tries that first innovative thing, and it's a total and complete disaster at your school site? Do you come in a judgmental and evaluative way? If you do, you'll see less risk-taking and innovation in your school system. Or do you come in as a person who is a support and as someone who is celebrating the risk that they took? And as someone is saying, hey, thank you for trying something new. That's amazing. I'm so proud of you. Let's see how we can figure out how to make this work next time. So if you come in as a support system and as someone who is celebrating their risk, then you'll see more innovation and risk taking in your system. But I think too many people come in with that evaluative, judgmental attitude, and then people are afraid to try something new.
And so you said you had over 60 books. Is there one book in particular, or maybe a couple books that may help our aspiring leaders?
Oh gosh, we have so many. I hate to choose one. Or I'll have authors and sending me DMs on Twitter like, "Hey, what are you talking about? What about my book?" But we have a whole. If you go to daveburgessconsulting.com and hit the book link, the books are set up in categories. So we have a whole leadership, like culture and leadership category there, and they're going to find unbelievable messages from unbelievable educators. And if they have any questions about a book that might be perfect for their situation, their role, or what the change they're looking to lead, I'd be happy to help them.
I didn't mean to call you out on that question. So in addition to your teaching position, you started speaking at conferences and started writing, and you were very active on social media. How did you start to find your voice beyond your classroom or your school?
Yeah, so I always encourage people to go speak. And so submit conference proposals everywhere, state or local level, state level, national level. Get out there, and when you do that, a powerful thing happens. When you have to kind of pull together your secret sauce, your magic recipe, what makes you successful in the classroom or as a leader, and present that to other people, it forces you to become very self-reflective, very intentional about your practice. That's what happened for me. When I agreed to do the Teach Like a Pirate workshop, all of a sudden I had to go back and say, hey, like, how come this works? Why does this work? And why doesn't this work? And why did I do this? Or how did I come up with that idea to begin with? And it forced me to become much more intentional about my practice, much more reflective, and it made me a better teacher. So when you start to when you have to pull together a workshop or a session, I think it's going to make you, not only is that a powerful way for you to spread your message, but it's going to even make what you do personally back in your school system more powerful.
In closing, what is the most enjoyable aspect of leadership?
Empowering other people. And so it's finding people's strengths, their talents, and empowering them to find their voice, and to have that kind of that shared model of leadership where it's not the boss, right? It's the person who is trying to actively serve and empower the people in their system. And so when you see other people find their voice and to find their role and to do powerful things, I think that's where the fulfillment comes.
And how can our listeners connect with you on social media?
I live on Twitter. I am at Burgess Dave. So my name just flipped around to Burgess Dave. The hashtag people often use to talk about these ideas are TLAP for leaders. We have Lead Like a Pirate. The Lead Lap hashtag, LEADLAP, is a great hashtag. And you can at daveburgess.com, and you can find our company, daveburgessconsulting.com. If you're an Instagram person, DBC_INC. I'm doing more on Instagram, so check me out on DBC_Inc. on Instagram.
And Dave, I wanted to highlight real quick too, on Twitter, you have Twitter chats. I know you do the TLAP chat, and then also your wife does the Lead Lap chat. So what is that all about?
Yeah, so Twitter chats are a fantastic way to connect and collaborate with people. Every week, Monday night, 8 o'clock Central Time, we hold TLAP chat. It's for 1 hour, and it's a chance for us all, at the same time to get together and talk about a certain topic. It changes every week, but it's basically centered around passion, creativity, engagement, and it's a way that you can tap into a community of people who are going to be positive and uplift you and support you. And so that's a powerful place. And then Shelly with Beth Huff, her co-author for Lead Like a Pirate, run the Lead Like a Pirate chat, Lead Lap, and that's at 9:30 Central Time on Saturday morning. And that's starting this year, it's a 30-minute format. So from 9:30 to 10 Central Time, they talk about a wide array of leadership issues, topics, and that's a wonderful place to tap into a community of leaders that will also be positive and uplifting.
Mm-hmm. Please continue to check out the Aspire podcast on SoundCloud and iTunes, and share your ratings and reviews. Don't forget to use the Aspire Lead hashtag as you continue the conversation on Twitter. Dave, thank you so much for being on the program.
It was my pleasure. Thanks again for having me.